Um, Hi, everyone. I am Christine Foster, Vice President of Media Operations at Kroger Precision Marketing. For those of you who don't know, Kroger Precision Marketing is the retail media business of Kroger, designed to make brand advertising more effective by closing the loop between media exposure and store sales. And today I am super excited to be chatting again with Aliya Ali, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Aliya Ali. I am currently leading the Omnichannel marketing team for Johnson & Johnson. Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in there. Let's talk a little bit about your career at Johnson & Johnson. Very successful. You have 15 plus years of business experience across multiple brand categories, markets, and channels at Johnson & Johnson. First of all, congrats. It's a lot, and it's amazing. We'd love to hear about that journey that you've taken at Johnson & Johnson.
Great. Yes, it's definitely been quite a journey. I've pretty much grown up working for Johnson & Johnson within the consumer division. This has been honestly the only company I've ever worked for to date. And during my tenure, it's been quite exciting because I've been given a lot of different opportunities to flex and learn new skill sets, which is probably the main reason I've only worked for this company. I started my career in trade marketing, which is now called customer strategy. And this is where I really learned about a holistic business plan and how that works. Working with a collaborative cross-functional team, supply chain, finance, marketing, etc. And each one of us had very different goals and metrics. And so I learned the true meaning of collaboration and servant leadership. And from there, I moved on to working within the customer development organization, taking on various roles in mass and in food retailers. And I quickly had to master the art of negotiation, true art of selling, and not to mention building and fostering relationship, trustworthy relationship. And that was really hard to do with the buyers at that time, but it is truly a critical skill set that is needed in customer development. So up to this time, my career was primarily focused in sales and customer development. And I remember the exact moment when one of my mentors, who at the time was the general manager of Neutrogena, and she said to me, you know, where do you see yourself long term? And I said, I want to be you. And she looked at me and you said, well, you know, you have great customer experience, but your capabilities in marketing are limited. And that is when it occurred to me that in order to truly be a commercial leader, you need to have multiple functional expertise. And 5+ years ago, that was not common for sales folks to move into marketing at Johnson & Johnson Consumer. Most marketers came up more of traditional route from MBA school, etc. And here I was, a sales manager trying to get into a marketing role. And I actually was the first to do that, but sure had a lot of eyes and visibility on me as I tried to navigate this uncharted world of marketing. But I kept my head down and I learned, and I focused on the consumer. I learned how to write a proper brief with meaningful insights. I focused on, you know, looking for ways to engage with a target audience and ultimately looking for ways to convert her at some point. And then I started leveraging my sales experience to challenge the way marketers were presenting operational plans and retailer selling decks. And I ultimately converted and developed a new process for the marketing business plan. And so today, I feel like I'm a better marketer because of my sales experience and vice versa. And the role that I have today is really fun. I lead the Omnichannel marketing team for Johnson & Johnson. And this is a great role because I can flex both marketing and sales functional experiences.
I love that. And I want to dig in a little bit there because I can imagine, and having previously chatted with you about some of these things, I can imagine that you're now leveraging a lot of those experiences in various functions now within your current role, both as a leader and as a marketer. So I'd love to understand, a little bit more about your current role. You're the director of Omnichannel Shopper Marketing. What does that mean? What is kind of a day in the life for you?
Yeah, the day in the life varies by day, and we could probably spend a lot of time talking about what we do. But at the simplest form, I would say that my team and I own the joint omni-channel marketing plans, which is at the intersection between brand marketing objectives and the retailer strategies. And they do that by connecting the shopper along the path to purchase. We work with retailer marketing teams, external vendors, and agency partners to understand the retail media objectives and the marketing ecosystems at our retailers to truly unlock partnership opportunities and build plans to deliver on brand and retailer objectives. So we are like at the intersection of both. And the most important part of our role is collaboration. Collaboration is critical in this role because it is truly rooted in driving excellence, and it is truly the only way we make robust integrated digital plans.
That's amazing. And I imagine that kind of the changes in the world over the last couple of years have, at that intersection, have been very interesting to kind of navigate, as they have for everyone. But they've been, consumer behaviors, as you know, have been in flux for a while. People are shopping differently and thinking about brands differently. And you mentioned being at that intersection of brand and retail. What kind of shifts in consumer shopping behaviors have you guys seen over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's not a surprise to think that consumers expect more from businesses and brands. We've known that for some time because they want to align themselves with the values of a brand and the ethos that they feel and appreciate, right? So we've known that for some time, but post-pandemic, consumers have a higher expectation of the digital journey. And what continues to be that driving force is convenience. So whether it's getting your brand page to load in less than 3 seconds, or developing a multi-channel experience with easy delivery or fulfillment functions, convenience continues to be that key. And so brands that are investing in this space, investing in the digital shelf space, which is different than the physical shelf, right? It is essential because those are the brands that are actually winning in the marketplace today. And so that's what we're actually focused on now.
That's awesome. And definitely something we at Kroger are focused on as well is what kind of a role does the digital shelf play in shopping decisions? And so I'm curious from your end, or from our teams work together, obviously, but from that perspective, what do you think? How do we meet the needs of the shifting consumer shopping behaviors and that rise of the digital shelf importance in shopping decisions?
Yeah, I think it's based on capabilities. Shopper marketing, or what I like to call omni-channel marketing capabilities, have grown over time. They have become more digital.
Right.
As retailer marketing ecosystems have expanded their offerings in more ways to reach shoppers along their path to purchase, it has in turn, on the flip side, increased shopper marketing investments, right? So not to mention retailers themselves have become media companies. It is truly blurring the lines between trade and marketing initiatives. And now we're spending a lot more time making sure that the digital shelf is a lot stronger and that we have the right visibility to the shelf in terms of paid media tactics, etc. But there's a lot more focus on ensuring that our digital acceleration model is working.
Yep. And you hit on it already, but the past few years have been defined by the emergence of retail media. And, obviously we here at Kroger are very much in tune with all that. But I would love to hear how that kind of has influenced Johnson and Johnson, and how have you guys been navigating the retail media offerings, and why you believe it's important to plan and strategize across all of the marketing ecosystem.
Yeah, it's really interesting because if you look at the Q4 earnings report from companies like Amazon and Walmart, which have basically disclosed how much their ad businesses have sold on their platform, it's pretty clear to see that the retailer media networks are a critical part of the future of retail. And I believe that it's really prompting retailers across the industry to look at their business model differently. And at Johnson & Johnson specifically, we are working towards evolving our digital first model. We are continuing to reevaluate our current process to free up more time for our teams to focus attention on performance measurements and optimizations. We are moving forward and looking towards a plan that is always on, that is more dynamic, with specific learning plans that have choiceful intervals to create and capture demand. This conversation is quite timely because we are working to create a much more agile operating model for performance marketing, as an example. And in order to really execute a truly integrated media plan, we need to strategize and plan across retailers, because it's only then can we capture multiple high value audiences. These high value audiences differ by channel. So your communication is going to look different at Dollar General versus an Ulta because of the consumer profile, the different shopping behaviors. So to really understand the go-to-market strategy by retailer is critical for our brands to understand, because that is the only way they're truly going to capture a larger audience and do it in a much more authentic and meaningful way for the consumer.
I love that. And it really speaks to uniting kind of what could be a fractured experience overall. And I love that you guys are really putting that effort towards bringing that strategy together in a more holistic way. One of the things that we've chatted about is, the lines between brand and shopper marketing starting to blend a bit, right? And the shopper, the shopping experience itself is becoming more seamless. That said, challenges still exist, as we know. So where do you see marketing silos still exist, and how are you at Johnson & Johnson looking to tackle them?
Yes, like many other companies, we do have traditional silos with marketing budgets, with trade and shopper budgets, et cetera. We do live in a matrixed environment, as many do. So honestly, this is still a work in progress for us, but we are moving in the right direction, I believe. We are looking for opportunities to address the need for better integration between brand marketing and shopper marketing. We are working to improve our integrated planning and activation process, developing new tools for our teams that seamlessly integrate the brand briefs with inputs from shopper marketing, earlier alignment on the right KPIs and metrics that matter, and working to clearly define the right DRIs to drive action and decision. Ultimately, we need to all prove the value of all retail media tactics to ensure that the dollar goes further. Where are we going to spend that one incremental dollar? That's always the $1 million question. So performance metrics and frequency of in-market optimizations are becoming even more critical to understand so that we can make the right investment choices.
Love it. You mentioned, and kind of hitting on that point, you already chatted about a performance operating system and kind of re-looking at what that could be. And then in terms of really driving that right value, or the visibility into that value, I guess, would be the right way to put that. We know that first party data and retail media have created an opportunity, or at Kroger, we believe it's created an opportunity for brands to measure and optimize against new media tactics more effectively. But we've got to prove that out, right? And that's exactly what you're speaking to. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that performance-based operating system and kind of the metrics that you guys across the internal marketing ecosystem at J&J are looking at to really see what's working. Where do I spend that extra dollar?
You know, it's an interesting question because it all depends on what the goal and or objective is that we're trying to set for the actual campaign, right? So if the campaign is meant to increase retailer foot traffic or increase brand awareness, the KPIs are going to look very different for that actual campaign. So we're constantly looking for opportunities to further increase return on all shopper marketing investments. So it's critical that we understand things like incremental ROI or ROAS, better understanding of brand and sales lifts. You know, we're looking for more in-depth insights into what tactics are driving media performance in order to prioritize and showcase the value of an improved ROI. And sometimes, you know, when we can exceed benchmarks provided by a partner, that's even better for us because, you know, it's definitely giving us a good gut check on where our campaigns should be landing.
Yeah, for sure. And with that in mind, do you guys already have, or have you identified the top metrics that'll be a priority for you in the coming year?
Yeah, I think incremental ROAS and ROI is probably going to be top of that list along with brand and sales lifts. You know, we're always constantly having to evaluate the value. You know, like if we're going to put dollars in, you know, connected TV versus programmatic banners, we need to be able to prove out the value in terms of the incremental sales we received, but instead of prioritizing what that creative looks like, because creative is expensive, as you know. So it's a balance, but I think it truly goes back to the goals and objectives, you know, for the campaign. At some retailers like Dollar General, foot traffic is really important. You know, they want to make sure they're bringing in more households to their stores. And so that's actually a really interesting point in terms of like the retailers and the marketers on their teams also do a really nice job helping us and helping us develop those KPIs together, you know, because they're also invested in ensuring that brands, you know, are successful within their networks.
So to kind of pull that together, it sounds like, you know, working with the retailers too, as you bring that strategy together across the full ecosystem, really working with them on what is the metric that is important retailer by retailer in some cases, based off of that audience, it sounds like. That's great.
And now we just have to make that all make sense to marketers, right? Because they value different things.
No small task. Well, I want to pivot a little bit and talk to you. I mean, obviously we could go on for days and we probably would, but we are on the Women in Marketing live cast. And so I want to ask you a little bit about your position and perspective as a woman, and how it's impacted the work that you've been doing in your current role within the omnichannel shopper marketing space and prior roles at Johnson & Johnson. You know, I'd love to kind of understand how you feel like that has allowed you to have a unique perspective in what you guys do.
Yeah, you know, it's I kind of leverage the same perspective in my personal life as well as my professional life. You know, I was raised by strong women in my life, my mother, my sister, my female mentors, and they kind of all have one thing in common, which is the ability to push me to be a better version of myself. And with all the teams that I've had, I try to do the same, push them to be better versions of themselves. And I continuously remind myself as well that I am a consumer as well. I was a teenager with mixed emotions and imperfections on my face. You know, I was a new mother who Googled pretty much everything under the sun. around safety of my child. I expected things from brands. And so what I tried to do is remind myself that there are shifts in consumer behaviors that change with a person's life cycle. And if we try to understand where they're coming from, we're probably going to have an easier job connecting with them. And so, I kind of try to root myself in things that, works for the consumer, root it in consumer engagement, but also leverage, this notion of being able to showcase, talent across the industry, push them to be a good reflection of themselves and get them to try new things, just as I try to do with myself.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love that you put yourself in that space as a consumer. Um, is there a particular role model that you look up to, or maybe a mantra or a leadership philosophy that you feel like has really worked for you and is something that you would pass along, to the next generation?
It's not really a secret, but people at work know that I enjoy a challenge. I like to go into a situation seeing new possibilities, and I really try to change status quo. And many of my accomplishments in life are honestly achieved mainly because of determination or setting a high standard for myself. I was raised by immigrant parents who worked hard to live the American dream. And it's kind of fundamentally rooted in my backbone. And so I'm a firm believer that you need to work hard and try new things, no matter how uncomfortable they are, to get to where you want to go. And no one can do that except yourself. And I'm a firm believer that you're the only person that can get in your own way. So if you challenge you channel your energy into the outcome you desire, you will eventually get there. Now, the path may not look like the vision that you necessarily set out, but eventually it will happen. And so I would say that it's really important to have a good set of mentors as well. I find myself reaching out to a diverse set of mentors to talk to when I need a safe space to vent without judgment. And I find that their experiences also help me improve myself. So that's a little bit around, my mantra, I would say, or my leadership philosophy. It's change status quo and really challenge yourself to think differently, because you never know, the outcome actually might be better than you expect.
You mentioned reaching out to a diverse set, and I key in on that point because I think that's so critical. It sounds like it's been important for you, but I have thoughts on potentially why a diverse set of mentors. But I'd love to hear from you, kind of why not somebody that's easily accessible or in a role that you aspire to. Why a diverse set of mentors?
I think it comes down to a different set of perspectives. I have mentors that are executives that are moms. I have mentors that are not within the industry, completely separate industry, but they understand the value of relationships better and can offer more perspective there. I like to have different mentors within marketing, within sales, outside of sales. I think the alumni network is also really critical. And so I keep in touch with Johnson & Johnson alums, that are no longer with the company, but still can provide me value of what they're seeing within their industry, as an example. And so I think just the variety of perspective is important, because there is no one path. And so they're able to offer a unique perspective. And so I would say if you don't have a strong mentor, that's probably something that you need to really spend the time to think about and get.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of talking a little bit about, I mean, you are an example of a really strong woman, have grown a great career. A lot of strides have been made for women moving into executive positions, right, over the last couple of decades. But there are obviously, again, still challenges that exist. So, what kind of practices do you believe or that you would advise females who are maybe earlier in their career as they're looking to grow their careers? What kind of, what do you think can help overcome maybe some of the challenges that they may face in their career?
Yeah, I would say better allyship and a strong support network is critical. More mentorship opportunities, even reverse mentorship. Like I have a reverse mentor right now that's teaching me. I'm learning a lot of urban dictionary words at the same time. So it goes both ways here. In terms of mentorship, there's a lot we can learn from each other, but we need to make the time to do that. We need to do a better job also at our own internal PR. Why? Because it's not always natural for us to do that. It's not always natural for us to like share all the great things we're doing and say, oh, look at me. But sometimes it's really necessary for other people to see what you're working on and how you've made a difference and how you've impacted the business moving forward. I'm not saying do it all the time, but you need to be choiceful of when to actually turn on your internal PR so that there is visibility of the work that you're doing. We need to inspire and encourage each other more. By surrounding yourself with people that want to succeed, people that want you to succeed, that will actually help you grow and ultimately support your conquest for advancement in the future, because you will have that allyship that you have actually built over time.
Awesome. And then kind of pulling it all together, right? Being a woman. What is a piece of advice that you would offer to a brand just getting started in omnichannel marketing and thinking about working with retail data?
I would say, and this is going to sound real simple, but it's so important. Data is king. So make it useful, right? It starts with understanding your consumer. And in the world of retailer, the shopper, and sometimes it's not always the same thing, right? You could have a Gen Z as your target audience, but your retailer may have a set of an older audiences. And so finding that right balance of like, who is truly the person you're trying to target with any activation you're putting together, any modality as well, that's going to be critical. Invest in some new shopper or consumer work if you haven't. If you've got data that's like 2 years old at this point, it may not be relevant anymore because there's been a shift in paradigm with the pandemic. So figure out what actually motivates your individual to make a purchase. And so even before you can get to solving their problem and their concern, their issue, you need to understand what she's looking for and why, and how she's looking for it and where she's going. So sometimes it's functional and sometimes it's emotional. And so finding that right balance of your consumer is really important. And brands that are winning in the marketplace truly understand the nuances, the differences, and the channel expectations. So tapping into retailer data is so critical because it's a wealth of information, right? It's a wealth of loyalty data sitting at your fingertips. So find it, make it useful to you, and target them in a way that is meaningful for them.
For sure. And then the last question for me, and then if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We have one, and I will get to it in a second. But my last question is, what are the emerging marketing trends that excite you about the upcoming year?
I think it's really interesting the space when it comes to NFTs, the metaverse, people's shopping behavior broader than e-commerce is growing. There's a lot of newness in terms of capabilities of augmented reality as well. Again, it goes back to the shopping behaviors. You can actually not physically need to go into the store, but take a picture of yourself and see 4 different shades of lipstick colors now. And so this idea of frictionless commerce is growing. And so it's really exciting to see, the possibilities of that.
That's great and totally agree. I will ask, so let me Does Johnson & Johnson have plans to include measurement of business outcomes from linear TV and streaming investments within the retail media networks that you're working with?
Absolutely. I mean, we're starting with the marketing mix models, but you betcha we're on it. And, you can actually speak to it better in terms of, KPMs metrics, but that is going to be super critical that we evaluate and then further integrate it in our actual measurement process. And so, like I said, that is something that we're working on now, which is streamlining our measurement capabilities and optimization so we can actually include multiple retailers within our set to actually look at the data holistically and make informed marketing decisions from it.
I love that. And that is something that you and I chatted about as well, is like making sure that we have those connections across both traditional silos and more digital elements to marketing too. And obviously measurement is huge within, and it's the reason that retail media exists in a lot of ways. So definitely a huge part of the coming year. Another question is, how would you recommend initially connecting with potential mentors, especially those that you might not interact with day to day?
That's a great question. So I'll give you a little bit of a secret that I do. And I still do this because I still am also looking for mentors across the industry as well as, at the executive level. And I was thinking about the same thing. So here's what I do. On Fridays, I set dedicated time. It's a 1-hour block, and I call it my internal PR strategy. And this is when I actually reach out to executive individuals, potential mentors, and I set up time. I put a 30-minute meeting on their calendar. I say, I want to connect with you. I want to learn about what you're working on, what you're doing. I'd like to share a little bit about my background. It starts with an introduction. It starts with getting to know that individual. And from there, you get to build on that relationship. It's uncomfortable because you're talking to people you don't know. But I do think that they would appreciate it because it's coming from a place where you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to develop, and you're reaching out to them for support. 99% of the time, people really appreciate that. They will value that and they will accept your invitation. But that's a really unique way to actually think about, your strategy and building your advocacy throughout your career. Take the time. That's critical.
That's amazing. And I think you hit on something that it is uncomfortable, but you've taken that proactive approach, not waiting for those people to reach out to you, but instead reaching out to them so that you're learning from them, which is amazing.
The other thing I would say is, it's sometimes nice to get your boss involved. If your boss has a connection with that individual, it might be good to say, hey, can you help me by reaching out to this individual, just to say that I'm going to be reaching out to them. Could you let them know a little bit about me and my background so that they're not surprised? Like, you can also find other ways to get, people to kind of endorse your advertising setting up meetings.
That goes to your allyship point as well, which I love. Okay. You mentioned your cross-functional networking is super key and that you have various diverse mentors. Is there a business partner relationship, internal or external, that you are particularly proud of, and why?
Yes. So I mentioned the general manager of Neutrogena at that time. She actually moved on to be president and is actually, now a J&J alum at a different company. And I still remain very close to her because she adds value into my life. She actually gives me opportunities to kind of vent, but then she's also very clear on her expectations being part of the J&J network for so long. And sometimes, you get feedback that you don't always want to hear, but you got to take it because that's what feedback is. It's a gift and you can choose to do something with it. You can choose not to, but I find having a set of, finance experts, supply chain experts, you can actually just go and talk to them about things that you may not want others to know, like, tell me how the GP works in this P&L. and not feel like they're judging you with questions like that. So it's really important to have cross-functional mentors that you can turn to also for business problems or situations.
So critical. I love that. What accomplishment are you in your career are you most proud of, and how did this accomplishment help you grow personally or professionally?
Sure. So when I was the senior brand manager for Neutrogena Sun Care, I joined the team with a very interesting perspective. I was a woman of color, and a lot of sunscreens at that time were really difficult to actually apply on my child because it was whitening. And it was a very uncomfortable situation at a pool because, she would jump in the water and then she would turn this paste white type look, and it was like, ugh, not great. And so I started researching, the brand ethos, and I found that all of our celebrity talents were predominantly, white Americans. And, I was trying to think about this huge population of, multicultural generations that were growing that may also have this type of issue. So I started looking at the consumer research, working with my research and insights team to understand, like, is this a problem? Is this a me problem, or is this a we problem? Like, how's this working out? Like, am I the only one that's having this challenge with sunscreens that are quite pasty and whitening? And turns out there's quite a huge market for consumers looking for more inclusive sunscreens. And so the idea of an invisible daily sunscreen appeared. And I would say that I'm super proud of this launch because it was the first time that it was like a guilt-free application of a sunscreen on my child. And I was like, yeah, it's invisible. You don't actually see the whitening. So I'm really proud of that launch in my career to actually build and create a product that's helping and improving lives of others.
Amazing. And on that note, we have no other questions.